Well, I want to first of all welcome you all back. We've had a nice little break. I saw some of you in Baltimore, which was really awesome. Really nice to meet you. For those of you who don't know me yet, I am Shakeia Taylor. I am a deputy senior content editor at the Chicago Tribune. I am at Curly Fro on Twitter. Tonight's guest, who I'm very excited to talk to, is Perry Barber, a longtime professional umpire, author, and promoter of women in baseball. She was the inaugural winner of the SABR Dorothy Seymour Mills Lifetime Achievement Award in 2018 and was recently inducted into the New York State Baseball Hall of Fame. She has umpired at all levels of the game, including Major League Baseball, spring training, and around the world in places such as Japan, Guam, Hong Kong, and the Caribbean. She is also a Jeopardy champion, accomplished musician, and author. She also conducts umpire clinics, speaks about umpiring in women's baseball, and serves as a board member for the International Women's Baseball Center and an advisor for Baseball for All. Perry, welcome. You gotta unmute yourself.
Thank you, Shakeia.
No problem. How are you?
I am remarkably and thankfully fine. After last week, I'm here on the east coast of Florida, and Hurricane Ian hit the west coast very, very hard, and actually some spots here on the east coast as well. But where I am, Port St. Lucie, we were very lucky. A lot of high wind and rain for days, but nothing destructive or damaging like other places. So I'm good. We're all good here. Thank you.
Good. We're glad you're good. Can you tell me a little bit how you got into umpiring?
My mother made me do it. That's the honest to God truth. You can imagine in a mother saying to her adult daughter, I think you should be an umpire. Even now in 2022, it's not something that happens a lot. But my mother, for some reason, the way I describe it is she saw something in me that I did not see in myself. And it was her prescience and her insight into, I guess, the person inside me that was just waiting to emerge, waiting for the right impetus. And she gave me that gift. And the one that recognized the person in me that wanted to be a little bit stronger, a little bit more forthright, a little bit more take charge, a little bit less shy and retiring, because I actually kind of was, even though, I did well in school and I had lots of friends and I was gregarious and, had a very happy childhood and young adulthood, relatively speaking. But there was very little that prepared me for umpiring. And my mother was the one that suggested it to me, as if she knew that all of that pampering and being praised when I was younger was not fulfilling to me anymore. The way it might have been, if I had been someone of her era, when women were not expected to be, take charge and to go out and have, great careers, make a lot of money and, set milestones and things like that. It was a totally different time. And that she recognized that in me and gave me not just the freedom to do it, but the encouragement and the support that I needed. It is really remarkable, and credit her. I honestly do not know what my life would be like if she hadn't suggested it to me. And so I have her to thank, and my twin sister and my brother Rocky, who was a soccer referee and kind of set an example for me, and my twin sister, who became my first umpiring partner in Little League when I somehow landed a job in a California Little League in 1981 while the major league players were on strike that summer, and quickly found out that none of the other umpires would work with me. They all refused. So out of desperation, the league supervisor said, "Do you know somebody who wants to work with you, who will work with you?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." So I recruited my identical twin sister, Warren, and bless her heart, she stepped up and became my partner for that summer. And boy, were we some dynamic duo, the two of us in Little League in India in 1981. India never knew what hit them that summer.
You said that no one wanted to partner with you. What did that feel like? How did they relay that message to you?
Well, it was relayed to me through the supervisor, who had kept putting me off when I said, "Why everybody else get a partner and I'm out there by myself and I don't even know what I'm doing," basically, which was true. I admitted it right away. I don't have very well, actually, that's to get the job. I kind of amplified my non-existent credentials, but once I was there, I was pretty honest about the fact that I lacked experience, shall we say. But they were desperate, as leagues often are. They were desperate for umpires, for somebody to get out there and do it. What should be regarded as making a noble effort to enforce the rules and maintain law and order out there, but so often is viewed very differently by parents and participants who have a vested interest in blaming us for, little Johnny striking out and never getting that big contract that they thought he was definitely going to get, except for what I did to him, in one game in 1984.
So you definitely pissed off some parents in your time umpiring Little League. Was there a time where a parent just went absolutely ballistic?
Oh, all the time. Oh, yeah. I mean, my first couple of games practically ended in riots. People wrote letters to the local paper begging the league never to let me come back on a baseball field. I mean, I was really that incompetent. But, you asked, what was it about umpiring that appealed to me and made me want to keep doing it? There was something about it that just fascinated me. It didn't make me want to cry. It didn't make me want to admit, defeat. It was something that was so interesting to me, like a subject that I had just discovered, a new thing that I had just learned about, that wow, this is so exciting and thrilling. Everything about it, I just love it. And that part of it, being the object of ridicule and contempt and, people's nasty comments, that never really entered my thinking about actually doing it and finishing the Little League season, even though I deal with it a lot. But I don't know, I guess I'm lucky that the example that my mother set for me throughout my life, and my twin sister too, who was a lot bossier than I was when we were growing up. But I kind of followed in her wake and took my cues from her when we were growing up, and could never be her. We were two very different people, but yet, as I said, there was something in me that wanted something more than what I had sort of carved out for myself or viewed myself as when I was growing up and as a young adult. And that was, I guess, to be respected for what I could do and for what I was able to contribute, rather than, how charming I could be or witty. Things, because that was really the way I grew up. And my sister and I went to a private school in New York, and we were not athletically inclined. It was pre-Title IX, back in the dark ages, and the goal was to get a good education, get into a good college, and find a nice young man, Andover or Phillips Exeter, and settle down and have kids and raise a family and send them back to Hewitt, the school that I went to. That was sort of the pattern and the expectation. But luckily, I got a really great education at Hewitt with mostly women teachers. And I think that had a very beneficial effect on my evolution as a human being and what I have become as a fully grown adult.
Hmm.
So yeah, and there's just so much about umpiring that has always interested me rather than deterred me or made me feel bad about myself because I made a mistake, which is human nature. And to learn to come to grips with that in a way that doesn't being destructive to your presence of mind and your ability to stay focused and in the moment is a very important skill that I don't think I had before I started umpiring, but I learned it from umpiring and from watching and working with other umpires.
You mentioned Title IX. Let's talk about Title IX for a second. We just
Mhm.
experienced the 50th anniversary of Title IX.
Yes.
We're slowly making strides with regards to women in baseball. What do you think about the progress we're making with women in baseball, with umpiring and with playing?
Baseball traditionally has had to be dragged kicking and screaming into the next decade, the next century. It is not a trend setter, shall we say. And so it has been with women's participation. But in the last 10 years, I think it has seen the greatest spark and acceleration in integrating women into the routine, everyday things that are what baseball is all about. That, doesn't necessarily mean a woman, pitching the seventh game of the World Series or something like that. But we have coaches and strength and conditioning coaches and analytics and announcers and managers, Rachel Balkovec, excuse me, the other Rachel, down in here in Florida for the Yankees, and women all over the place now. I'd be surprised if every single major league team didn't have a woman in a position of singular authority within the organization at some level or maybe even every level. And that is very encouraging. As far as umpires go, the news is not quite as positive because of the slow progress that women have made, making inroads into the traditionally male domain of professional umpiring. In the
Mhm.
last 50 years, since the same year that Title IX is the year that Bernice Guerra worked her first professional ball game in 1972, and it turned out to be her last because she did what she set out to do, which was prove that a woman could withstand all of the pressures and unique vicissitudes that she had to tolerate just to get to that one game. And I mean, it was a years long process. It wasn't just something that happened overnight. She wound up working this pro game in Auburn, New York, and then she quit because she had accomplished what she wanted to do. She opened the door, but that door didn't stay open very long or very far. In the 50 years since then, I think we're now on our 9th woman in pro ball. It's been a very slow trickle, one every 5 or 6 years, very seldom in pairs, never in groups, because that's just too scary. Oh, a bunch of us, all that estrogen, watch out. No, they do not want to deal with that. One at a time is trouble enough. So that has been the pattern. And the people in positions to make a difference who could promote women or develop programs to attract women to the umpire schools, which is where it all starts, haven't really been very proactive about doing that. They are just now coming around to the idea that the first one is not going to just show up all magically ready to go, prepped and
Mhm.
on board, that she will have to be recruited and developed and trained and given proper support and chances to screw up and experience. And that takes a while. There's no really short path to the major leagues. There is a woman in high AA right now, Jen Paul, who has the best shot right now at becoming a major league umpire, maybe in 2 or 3 years now, with the reorganization of minor league umpiring that just occurred this year, which I think is a very positive step forward. That changing the umpire school from the paradigm where they would literally just accept anybody who showed up, who had the time, 5 weeks in January and February, and the money, which is now, it's more than $3,000 for a session. And when I went, it was $600, and then, gradually rose because I went 4 or 5 times. But it's expensive, and there are other considerations. Umpires that go to school have to often leave jobs, leave family for those 5 weeks, on the infinitesimal chance that they're going to rank in the top 10 out of about 200 students, and from those 200 be winnowed out and sent to the next step, which is umpire development, and from there again be culled, and maybe, if you're lucky, sent out into the lowest of the low bush leagues, which are the rookie leagues here in Florida, and they're instructional leagues out in Arizona. And they play, at noon in the blazing sun in June and July. It's kind of silly. I guess they need to broil their umpires to season them properly or something. No, seriously. I've never understood why the instinct is to torture umpires beyond the torture that we get on the ball field. That minor league baseball could do so much better as far as pay, travel, treatment, support, just listening to umpire, things like insurance and medical care. Excuse me. Which are now starting to happen. The minor league players just unionized, and so that's going to start to happen for them. And the minor league umpires unionized a while ago, but the union did not have a lot of leverage and has not really accomplished very much. But hopefully with the forward movement in the players union now, the umpires union will also experience an upswing, because the way the minor league umpires were treated during the pandemic, when baseball shut down in 2020, March of 2020, they were told that they had to give their per diems back. And a lot of those umpires depend on per diems. They send their salaries home to their families. And oh man, a bunch of people raised a holy stink about that.
Mm-hmm.
Baseball saw the wisdom of backtracking on that little ploy, thank goodness. But yeah, they've never treated their umpires with the respect that they really should, especially, like I said, when you consider what we have to put up with sometimes on the field.
What's the pay like?
We should be worshipped off of it, as long as we're treated so badly while we're out there.
What's the pay like for an umpire, particularly in the minors?
Oh, it's terrible. I don't know how anybody survives, seriously, and not very good health benefits. And, it's just such a grind.
So when you dropped for a second there, Brittany had posted a question about, are there scholarships or other financial support for women who want to become umpires, or do any of them specifically focus on women of color? And I think you were kind of already going that direction when you were cut off.
Great question. Yes, there are scholarships available, and they are not designated specifically for any group or ethnicity. They are open to anybody that goes to any of the 5 or 6 clinics that Major League Baseball now offers at different venues throughout the country, different times of the baseball season. The last one was just a few weeks ago in Brooklyn. and they had a pretty good turnout there, almost 200 people. So those are open now. And they are definitely the way to go, because they are the place where the major league supervisors look at the students and have the unerring eye to be able to detect who shows promise as an umpire. So they're not going by, whatever dude has the time and the money and, shows up at umpire school anymore. Now it's, yeah, he looks like, somebody that could be a really good umpire, or she looks like she knows what she's doing, or she looks like with a little bit of training, she could really handle herself well out there. And so that is happening. And that is a big shift in not just the outlook from the supervisors, but the way that students are going to be drawn to the school. Because like I said before, it was just sort of hodgepodge. And so right from the get-go, the pool of candidates was not, it wasn't the creme de la creme. It was, sometimes, somebody's brother. But anyway, it's going to be a lot better right from the start. There's going to be a higher level of excellence right from the start of a young umpire's career. So hopefully the progress through the minor leagues will be quicker. Baseball has sort of promised that is one reason why they're doing this, to make it fast and make it happen faster, because they understand that asking somebody to devote 8 to 10 years, on a slim chance that they're going to make it to the major leagues is, in this day and age, pretty unreasonable. And so they are adjusting. Thankfully, baseball is a game of adjustments. And so that's a very positive change. And yes, scholarships are available and they're open to anybody. And if anybody, and not necessarily people with aspirations to go to umpire school in either. A lot of amateur umpires show up just to get the instruction so that they can go back to their local leagues and, tell the other umpires, these are the mechanics that the major league umpires are using now, which is a very valuable sort of spoke in that wheel. So yeah, that's a very positive development that and I'm not sure how many, to tell you the truth, I think probably as many as they want to be available. I mean, it doesn't cost them anything, to give a scholarship to somebody to go to umpire school, except in terms, and I'm not sure what I think a scholarship means that, the whole package is paid for, including hotel and some food package, something like that. So that's a very happy development. And as a matter of fact, I know right off the top of my head, I know 2 women that will be going to umpire school next January because they were selected, one from the Richmond camp and one from the Brooklyn camp. So I'm just excited about that, because the pattern has been one at a time, like I said, never in pairs, or definitely not groups. So things are definitely looking up.
Well, as an umpire, we talked about this, so you kind of knew I was going to ask. What is your perspective on some of the changes happening in MLB? Like, how do you feel about the ghost runner, or the Manfred man, as people are calling it, and the larger bases, and people discussing robo umps? What is your perspective on those things? Go for it.
Robo umps kind of a separate category. We'll get to that. The rest of it, I understand the need to tweak the rules, even though I also understand, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We are learning to adjust because we know that's the way it's headed. And we really don't have much say about it. So baseball is a game of adjustments, and umpires have to learn to adjust just like everybody else. And I don't necessarily the pitch clock, it irritates me, primarily because there already was a rule, and it has been in the rule book for at least 40 years, as long as I've been umpiring. And since I went to umpire school, when they emphasized it, that umpires should enforce what's called the batter's box rule, to make the batter stay or keep one foot in the box instead of stepping out after every pitch and adjusting their gloves and fixing their hats and wasting a lot of time. To me, that's the biggest time waster in all of baseball. And it's why games that I umpire are often at least 25, 30 minutes shorter than a lot of other umpires that I work with, because I say to the batters, hey, keep one foot in the box. And they'll look at me like I'm from Mars and say, huh? And, but then they'll get it, because if you say, please keep one foot in the box, if you don't, I'm going to have to call a strike on you. And I don't say, I'm going to call a strike on you. I say, I have to call a strike on you because that's what the rule requires me to do. So it sort of depersonalizes that aspect of penalizing the batter. And I think take some of the sting out of that type of interaction so that the batter, doesn't get his dander up and, take an attitude and things, go to hell in a handbasket. I don't like that. I like baseball to be fun and to have good communication and good relationships with the people that I'm out there with for as long as it is, 2.5, 3 hours. And being able to deal with things like adjusting to the technology and learning how to work with new rules and, whatever. I mean, if it's for a safety reason, I wholeheartedly endorse it. But for, just to save time or to, make it more thrilling, I don't know, it kind of makes me uneasy because I've always found baseball so thrilling in and of itself. If you love it, it's going to be thrilling, whether or not it's a slow, boring game and some people regard a 1-0 pitcher's duel as a slow, boring game. To me, that's the most exciting
I love those
game there is. And, people who love baseball are nodding their heads. And that's one of the beautiful things about it. And one of the beautiful things about umpiring, because it's part of that just sort of, beauty of the universe, being one with the universe. I think of it as.
You're a big advocate for women in baseball in all areas. And I know that you're working with Dr. Cat Williams on IWBC and getting a museum. I'm wearing my Museums Are Not Neutral sweatshirt today. Talk to us about what you guys are doing in Rockford and all over, I guess.
Yes, and I think I saw Leslie Heafy on here too. Hi, Leslie. I hope you used your new bottle opener, your new Mets bottle opener, and are drinking a beer, raising a quaff to the Mets. Go Mets. So yes, working with IWBC has been just an absolute privilege and a pleasure. And I've been a member. Let me fix this light here. Sorry. I've been a board member for 7 years now, I think. And we have engaged in some just absolutely mind-blowing projects, the biggest of which is building a girls and women's baseball museum and activity center out in Rockford on the land adjacent to Bayer Field, where the Rockford Peaches played. And Cat Williams is our president, and she is our driving force. And Leslie is just a whiz at everything. She's completely remarkable. And SABR is so lucky to have her. And I am so lucky to have her as a friend and a mentor. And and the best thing about it is becoming friends with Maybelle Blair and Shirley Berkovich when they were both board members. Maybelle is a board member emeritus, and Shirley, as many of you know, unfortunately died back in March, very relatively unexpectedly. She seemed to be in good health, and it was just a huge loss. But knowing the surviving ladies of the AAGPBL is just one of the best parts of my life. And being involved even peripherally with this new version of a league of their own, because I know a lot of the women that were involved with it as actors, as ball players that are background players, and with Justine Siegel, who was the baseball consultant, and her right-hand person, Lena Park, who was also very instrumental in coaching the women who appeared on screen in the series. And the scene where Max pitches to Josh Gibson. Have you seen that? Have you seen it, Shakeia?
Mm-mm.
Oh my gosh, you've got to. Oh, it's just I get goosebumps just even thinking about it. Yeah, you've got to see it. And I think it's the second episode. So, but yeah, it's just been so much fun. And this project about building the museum is so meaningful because there isn't one. There isn't a girls and women's baseball museum. There was a virtual one for a while, and I think there still is, but there was no bricks and mortar place where girls and women could go or think of as their home for their sport, apart from softball. Because baseball and softball are two different sports, and we don't want to conflate them. We love softball. Please do not mistake the fact that we want to keep them separate as any sort of disdain for it. It's not. We love softball. It's great. It brings girls together. It teaches them teamwork, a lot of valuable things that they can use later on in life to become successful, like the women in the All-American Girls League did. A lot of them went on to become super achievers because they gained the confidence that they longed for and needed to be able to play baseball together with other women in order to find within themselves. And working with Maybelle and Shirley and getting to know them and seeing how hard they work. Maybelle is 95 and I can barely keep up with her. And Shirley was the same
She's
way.
Everywhere.
I am serious. And she will close down the bar, baby, with a grasshopper in both hands. And she is just such a pill and so wonderful to be around and such an inspiration. She went on, she was in the Dodgers announcers booth a couple of months ago, and we raised a lot of money off of that one appearance that she made, that the Dodgers gave her. And yeah, she's just wonderful. So it is a very important part of my life. And so I actually kind of feel responsible for it because I'm the one that called Kat on the phone, on my cell phone, from the parking lot across the street from Myers Stadium, where I had just umpired a game. And I overheard a guy that I knew talking basically to himself, mumbling about how he did not know, he couldn't take the gift of this land because he was not a 501c3. And literally just days before, IWBC had received our 501c3 certification. So when he said, I don't know what to do with this land, I can't take this gift, I'm not a 501c3. And I walked over to him and I said, what are you talking about? And he said, well, the guy that owns this land, and it was just two plate factories that were deteriorating badly, couldn't even sell it. And so he was trying to give it away. And he was going to give it to Greg, who was a fixture in Rockford. But Greg didn't know what to do with it. And so IWBC wound up taking it over and getting it cleaned up, meeting EPA certifications, and buying additional land on the north end of the Bayer Field property. And that's where we are building our activity center and museum now. And we've gotten fantastic support from Rockford. The whole town turns out when we put on events to raise money. It's just absolutely fantastic. And we've had corporate support from Hard Rock Casino and so many companies and corporations that have been willing to donate smaller amounts. And Amazon has always been very supportive since the inception of the series, which was years ago. I mean, Will Graham and Abby Jacobson started working on the idea for the show at 5 years. They did not do this, in a year or a couple of months. They worked at it. They did the research. They have amassed a library of research about, the era, the times, the fashions, everything. It's just such a remarkable piece of scholarship. So I recommend that you watch it. Seriously, anybody that hasn't seen it, yeah, please watch it. It's worth it. And it's not all girl on girl sex or whatever you may have heard. It confronts, those issues.
I don't know, Perry. I've heard, and this is a positive thing. I've seen on my timeline that it's real gay, like over and over
It
again.
is very
people are
gay.
excited about that.
It is, but the gayness is not about the pornography gay. It's about connection gay. It's about friendship gay, and being honest gay, and finding the freedom within yourself to be who you really are authentically, and to develop honest relationships with other people based on that, instead of something that you feel you have to hide or manufacture. And seeing that happen on screen is just, it's wow. I mean, it's really exciting to see that, because it's just a whole new way of looking at the way people relate to each other. And I just love it. And I recommend it. And I've watched it with a room full of young girls, and they were all like rooting, yeah. And not all of them were gay.
I was just teasing. I saw people talking about that as a positive. That's why I said it that way. Like, all
very
the comments
positive.
I've seen have been very positive about it.
Yeah, super
Paulette
gay.
wants to know. Paulette wants to know, what characteristics have helped you to hold your own as you deal with players or managers who confront you about a call?
Okay, well, the first thing I have always tried to remember to do to help myself is to take a deep breath and sort of focus on what's happening right then and there, instead of, what may have led up to it, or, what's going to happen 10 seconds from. It's just to give that person the chance to express whatever impelled him to come out and talk to me in the first place, because usually that's what they want. They just want to be heard. People want to be heard. So developing that skill of accepting, what is may wind up being a confrontation, accepting that as a conversation first and a chance to interact with somebody so that you get a successful outcome, rather than wind up having to eject somebody and then, write a report, which is never fun. Homework. But yeah.
Wait, you have to write a report when you eject someone?
Oh, yes. Most leagues require a written report because there are penalties for being ejected. A coach could be suspended for the next 2 games. Depending upon which league or association you work for. In amateur associations that do, youth baseball and little league and things like that, they may not require a written report. I'm not sure, but they do usually require at least a call from the umpire to the assigner, so that they know what transpired, because they're surely going to get a call from the coach that was thrown out of the game complaining about it, and they need to be informed of what happened so that they're not caught unawares. Nobody likes it when that happens. So yeah, reports have to be made. And when you write it out, sometimes seriously, it's like being re-traumatized. You have to write everything as truthfully and fully as you remember it. And a lot, sometimes language is very unpleasant, and the intent behind it is very unpleasant. And especially the first 10, 15 years of my career, when people could be pretty hostile and vitriolic, and they just were not nearly as accepting and as willing to be patient as people are now that I'm older and more experienced. But yeah, I had to go through a lot of, rough waters and learn to deal with that type of thing, because I definitely wasn't going to let it make me quit. There was no way. And so if I didn't want to quit, I was going to have to learn how to navigate those interactions in ways that, didn't make me feel like falling into a deep depression and losing all my self-worth, which is easy to do. When you're an umpire, you need a support system, an emotional support system, very important. And I was lucky that I sort of had mine and my mother and my twin sister and my brother throughout my umpiring career. As long as my mother and my sister were alive anyway, they both passed away, but my brother is still around.
Okay. Is there anything that we didn't ask you that you feel that we should have asked you, that you feel that we should know about you or umpiring or your experiences?
Oh, well, if you would ask me, I don't know, what is my purpose in life now after 42 years of umpiring? It's to spread the gospel, that umpiring is now welcoming to women, and that it's a way to come to understand yourself a lot better and to improve every aspect of your daily life, even off the field, because what you learn on the field about how to deal with adversity and people losing their cool around you, and how to maintain your composure when everything is becoming chaotic around you, and how to get things back on track, and basically sort of be the conductor of the orchestra. And that's what I love about umpiring. Those are very valuable skills that translate to your friendships and your family relationships. And I would tell women, think about that, and try it, give it a try. Or if you know somebody, please say, why not give it a try? Go out, talk to a little league umpire, find out how you can get some training. Because it really is it's a joyful experience. I mean, it may sound sort of sappy to say that, but to me, it always is. And even the bad parts sort of become part of the tapestry of joy that is the overall, picture of umpiring to me. So yeah, so girls and women, think about umpiring as a way to, earn some decent money, to make lots of friends. Umpires are the best. We're loyal, trustworthy, and always have a good supply of beer. Not me, because I don't drink, but all my other umpire friends. So yeah, that's what I would say. And please be kind to umpires. We're not trying to screw up out there. Nobody wants to embarrass ourselves out there in public. We really are trying to do our best. So
I do have one more question for you. What are your thoughts on, the strike zone that they show on TV? What do you think about that? I personally don't like it, but I want to know.
I don't
what
like
you
it
think.
either. It often presents a skewed true zone, and the zone is three-dimensional. It's not, just that little box. And now with robot umpires and the loss of pitch framing as an art, which to me was always kind of ridiculous to begin with, because a strike is a strike where it is over the plate, not where the catcher catches it or snatches it back in. So I never really understood why catchers do that. But yeah, technology is coming, and we're doing our best. But thankfully, at the levels that I umpire, which is mostly amateur ball, the only pro ball that I do is during spring training, when I work with the major league teams down here in Florida. And when I worked in the Atlantic League for 4 years, from 1998 to 2001. But other than that, amateur leagues are not going to be able to spend millions of dollars on, cameras and technologies and analysts and somebody pressing a button that sends a message to an umpire's earpiece. They're going to need human umpires, flesh and blood umpires, that have training and the desire to, do a good job and contribute to their local sports scene. And, umpiring is a very valuable contribution. I've always felt that. So did that answer your question?
Yes, you did. You did. Does anyone else have any more questions for Perry?
Oh, yeah.
I'm looking at the, I've been asking what they've been putting in the chat. I don't think you noticed, but I've been asking. If anyone has any more questions, going once,
If
going
nobody
twice,
does, I would like to say one thing. Um,
go for it.
there is a book that's being assembled by Bill Nowlin of SABR, of Yankee Stadium memories, and I'm one of the contributors. So I just wanted to tell everybody to be on the lookout for that. SABR publishes the most amazing books, and I've been lucky enough to be a part of two of them. And so please keep an eye out for that, everybody. Bill Nowlin is so prolific. I just can't believe the output that man uh, puts out. It's remarkable. So
Well, thank you, Perry. Thank you for sharing with us tonight. And thank you, everyone, for hanging out with us tonight. And
thank
like I
you.
said, oh, I'm sorry, Perry. Marlene, she actually answered that in her question, earlier, but I can ask her again if you would like. Marlene wanted to know if you thought there would be a woman at major league level soon.
I think with the recent changes in the umpire school paradigm and the way that that will affect the progress of minor league umpires through the hierarchy of minor league umpiring, that it's very possible that we'll see Jen Paul being used as a vacation umpire within 2 or 3 years.
2 to 3 years, right?
Yeah, keeping my fingers crossed for that to happen. She's got to stay healthy, and that's a big if for an umpire. So easy to get hurt out there. So wishing her the best, because she is so solid and excellent. She will blow everybody away. And yeah, I would love to see her up there. I'd love to see her and a few others, but one at a time. We'll take our little dribbles and drabbles, and it's never going to be a flood of estrogen crazed banshees, seeking to invade the field. That's the fear, I think, and why they never want to see women in groups. And one at a time is all they can handle. But it's true that one at a time, and we're going to change that. I put together a crew of 4 women for a spring training game with the Mets. Gosh, it was 14 years ago, and just haven't had the chance to do it since, and nobody else has either. And I just am, waiting for the chance or for somebody else to do it, or to see it in the WBC where there is a woman umpiring. My buddy, Lisa Turbot from Canada, she's umpiring the WBC qualifier in Panama right now. And that is a big step forward for women on the international umpiring scene. So yeah, good things are happening slowly, but
Well, thanks again, Perry. Thanks everyone for joining us. I will catch you all on Twitter and then back here next month, first Thursday of the month, with Aaron Santana, the education coordinator for the Chicago White Sox. Have a good night, y'all.